Meeting for Tuesday, September 8th. First, we just came out of two executive sessions, one for the discussion of strategies relative to purchase, exchange, lease, value of real property, and a second one to discuss some pending litigation. Some announcements. Brookline Day is coming up.
The 20th of this month.
At Lars Anderson Park. It's always a fun event. I always look forward to it. Starts around...
I think there's two parts to the day. There's a
Yes,
morning
thank you.
road race.
Right.
11 o'clock is when it starts?
So I think the road race is at 8 a.m. And then there's a sort of a field day booth component to the day as well. And I believe that starts around 11 or 12.
Yeah, but they have a lot of fun stuff for the little kids in particular, and it's, they've been fortunate the last few years. It's usually good weather. I hope that continues.
There's detailed information both about times and the events planned at brooklineday.org.
Oh, that's a great
Wow.
URL. Any other announcements? I don't believe we have anyone signed up for public comment. So moving forward with our miscellaneous calendar, the minutes for August 25th.
I think we should say...
Yeah, we're going to have to, I think...
I think we have to hold them.
Hold it, but if anyone has any...
I passed some
I'm
edits
going
into
to pass
Kate.
in my changes, but we're going to have to, since...
Yeah, I would have to abstain, because I was
Right, we don't
not
have a
there.
quorum to vote for those minutes, so I think we'll just postpone that. Item B is the question of executing the environmental review record for use of the fiscal year 2016 Community Development Block Grant Funds, and I see Mr. Viola here to tell us about that.
Good evening. Joe Viola, Assistant Director for Community Planning. Miscellaneous item B is a request for the Selectmen to authorize Chairman Wyszynski to sign an environmental review record on behalf of the town. Every fiscal year, as part of our administrative oversight for the CDBG grant, we're required to submit what's known as an environmental review record. It's a brief narrative of all the projects and programs we'll be funding in the upcoming fiscal year. Most of the projects we have are exempt or categorically excluded, which means essentially as soon as this record is signed, they can begin to spend the funds as soon as we're able to get them a contract. There's one other project in the record this year, the Brookline Avenue Playground, which will require a little more of a two-step process. It requires a public comment process. I'll be before the board in early October to specifically request a release of funds for this project only. But essentially, without this environmental review record being signed, that's the first step to moving free the funds for the upcoming fiscal year.
Any questions from the board?
No.
Seeing none, I'll move, what am I moving? Right. You can tell I'm still on the jet lag here.
I'll make the motion. We'll
Thank you.
authorize our chairman, Neil Wyszynski, to sign the environmental review statement for the CDBG money.
I could have done that. All those in favor, Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
Great, thank you.
Item C, the question of approving and executing a lease agreement with Brookline Bank, formerly known as Brookline Savings Bank, for use of the property located at 24 Webster Place by the school department. Ms. Dunn, representing the school department.
So as some of you are aware, the part of what precipitated this lease was gaining some classroom space at Brookline High School, and as of today, it's not included in the memo that was provided to you, but we're essentially about 4 classrooms. This will free up 4 classrooms at Brookline High School for needs that they have this year and absolutely have needs for next year for growing enrollment. There are approximately 45 employees that will be moving there. We have a parking plan going to the Transportation Board, hopefully next week, where we only need a net of about 24 spaces and freeing up some spaces in this building. So we've been trying to sort of figure out what short-term and long-term plans we need. So this also provided your memo just to highlight for you is the school department is up to approximately 35,000 square feet of leased space for providing instructional or work area for our employees.
How many square feet is this particular space?
This is 10,000 square feet.
10,000, okay.
I was trying to figure out which building is it?
24 Webster Place is, Starbucks is on your right. You continue down the road, it's the opposite, it's the end of the long sort of rectangular building on the left.
Okay.
It's at the end of that, for that side of the building.
Yeah, it's right before the Brookline Community Fund.
Oh, okay, okay.
Selectman Franco?
So it looks like the cost per square foot of this lease would be $27.50. Is that a triple net cost? You don't know.
That's what it's going to cost us.
That's what,
That's what it's going to cost us.
Yeah, I can address that. It isn't a
why don't you just step up to the microphone,
Sure,
sir?
yeah. John Bouquet, Associate Town Council with the Office of Town Council. So you asked if it was a triple net lease, Selectman Franco. It is not. Other than the rent, the only additional cost that the town will be paying is for lights and plugs for electricity.
Okay. So I see on page 6 of the contract that there's some mention of insurance being carried by the sublessor, who is the town. Do we know what that cost is going to be? Insurance coverage to be maintained by sublessor.
Yeah, the sublessor is that will be the bank, in this case, the Brookline Bank. They're subletting it to us. We're the sublessee. We have no additional insurance costs. Our obligations are to represent what our current insurance policies are. And it's $200,000 a year, plus the lights and plugs, and it's about 10,000 square feet. So it's about $20 a square foot is my understanding.
I think the figure I gave was the lease plus the build out.
Okay, okay, got it. Yeah, okay.
And this is a 5-year lease.
4.
4 years.
4
4
years.
years, correct.
Okay.
Right, so the Brookline Bank signed, I think, a 10-year lease
Gotcha.
6 years ago, and they've been looking for a tenant for a while.
And we are it.
All right.
Any other questions, concerns? So I'll move approval of a lease agreement with the Brookline Bank, formerly known as Brookline Savings Bank, for the use of the property located at 24 Webster Street by the Webster Place, by the school department. All those in favor, Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. We're postponing item D and moving on to item E, which is the question of accepting a grant in the amount of $26,000.
Can I, they've left already. I was just on item D, that when we're so desperately looking for space all over the place, I wondered if they had considered whether this Ackers Avenue property could be used for something by the town before renting it out.
It's just a little house.
Okay.
This is a question of accepting a grant in the amount of $26,500 from the Executive Office of Public Safety as part of the FY 2006 State 911 Department Training Program. Funds will be used for training personnel and new equipment. Ms. Goff.
Good evening. Chief O'Leary's at a different meeting, the Diversity Commission, I believe. So he is running late, but I'm familiar with this because this is an annual grant that we get from the state E911 money, and it is used for training for the dispatch staff and other equipment to support their operations.
Is there some reason why the documentation is slightly different?
Yeah, I
figure
just noticed that
From the,
the calendar shows 26,500, the memo
Go by
from
the
the
memo.
chief, go by the memo. Okay, so I'll amend the dollar amount in the motion. Any questions?
Only to say that it's always nice to accept money rather than spend it, so.
That's true.
Thank the
Well, and
chief
also
and-
the 911 training is critical, I think. And unfortunately, because the fire department and the police department keep poaching them away, we seem to have a lot of turnover.
Right. Okay, so I will move accepting the grant in the amount of $26,555 from the Executive Office of Public Safety as part of the FY 2016 State 911 Department Training Program. All those in favor, Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
Thank you.
We're postponing items F and G. Moving on to item H, which is the question of awarding and executing a contract bicycle improvements on St. Paul Street, Newton Street, and Goddard Avenue in the amount of $63,823.60 with Highway Safety Systems, Inc. of Rockland. Mr. Ditto, what's going on
Good
here?
evening. Yes, this is a continuation of our bicycle improvements on the public ways. And this contract here is for installing pavement markings on St. Paul Street from Beacon to the town line, as well as on Newton Street from Clyde Street to Goddard Avenue, and then also on Goddard Avenue from Newton Street to Los Anderson Park. Bids were open August 13th. We had two bidders, with the low bidder being Highway Safety. He actually has our maintenance contract right now for painting street lines. So we know of him, and we've had good relations with him, so we recommend approval.
We have to vote with Mr. Ditto when he's managed to perfectly match his tie to his shirt. Looking very dapper tonight.
Thank you.
That's a real reason to vote
Yeah,
for this.
yeah. Well, I'm also, I think bike lanes are a good idea. When my kids were young, I used to tell them, like, not to ride their bicycle in Brookline because it was too dangerous. So I think the bicycle lanes are an improvement.
You're right, they're an improvement, but they're not the
Not,
panacea.
yeah,
Any other questions, comments? So I'll move, you ready?
Oh, go ahead.
I'll move awarding contract bicycle improvements on St. Paul, Newton Street, and Goddard Avenue in the amount of $63,823.60 with Highway Safety Systems, Inc. of Rockland. All those in favor, Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item I, question of approving change order number 7 in the amount of $9,519.18 for work to be completed by the Lambrian Construction Company in connection with the old Lincoln School. Do we have anyone? Should we move that down?
Yeah, why don't we do those, the next two now?
It's a pretty small amount, so, I mean,
Yeah, is there
I-
a building commission meeting? Is that where they are at? Yeah.
yeah. I mean, you know, when you read through it, this is, in the scale of the contract we have for the work at the old Lincoln School, these are pretty minor items, so I would
Right.
suggest we could go ahead and vote them.
And it also includes a $5,000 credit, so this is a net, and it's a, $3 million project, so.
Yeah.
And the changes all look pretty routine.
I did wonder why we were painting our copper instead of just leaving it natural, but Since there's no one here to answer that question, I'll let it go.
So do you feel comfortable voting this, Selectman Franco?
I do.
Okay. So I'll therefore move approval of change order number 7 in the amount of $9,519.18 for work to be completed by Lambrian Construction Corp. in connection with the old Lincoln School renovation project. All those in favor say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The next item is J, and this is a change order number 8 in the amount of $43.32 for work to be performed by GVW Inc. in connection with Lawrence School. And we have the same issue with the conflict with the building commission. These seem to be pretty routine and...
Low dollar amounts
Yeah.
for things that are pretty self-explanatory.
Well,
Right.
Mr. Quigley has written a fairly extensive memo on all of these to tell us exactly what they're for.
So it's
Right.
fixing some screw holes and adding a downspout and adding some sewer, doing some sewer line work and something about a landing on a stair. So it's all sort of final punch list types.
Right,
type
and then a
items.
credit for retesting. They didn't have to do some retesting for leaks. So this all looks pretty routine, and so I'm comfortable. Okay, so I will therefore, this is item J, move approval of change order number 8 in the amount of $4,332 for work to be performed by GVW Inc. in connection with the Lawrence School. I'll also note that the Building Commission also
Approved of both of
approves
these.
approves these, so we're not the only ones eyeballing these things. So all those in favor, Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
And perhaps if Mr. Quigley doesn't show up, we could just get an update of where we are in the completion of these projects and costs, yeah.
Right. And we now have a number of temporary wine and beverage licenses.
I was actually asked to say a few words about
Okay,
the
please
event
do.
at the senior center. Brookline Can, which is let's see, Brookline, it's
Brookline Community Aging Network.
Aging Network, okay, is having their annual meeting at the senior center on September 17th from 4:30 to 7 p.m. And the organization which was really kicked off by Frank Caro, has done a lot of good work to try to get seniors organized to help other seniors, or to get information on who they can turn to when they need help with various things, and they have recommendations on their website about who's reliable to work on your house and things like that. So it's been a great organization, and I believe, I don't know, I think I'm getting confused with the senior center's gala, which is also coming up. I was going to say who was being honored, but I won't say it, because I think that,
I think this is just an annual meeting.
yeah.
I think you're thinking of a different event.
Well, no, I actually was honored at this last
Oh,
year,
okay.
so they do honor somebody, but, anyway, it's a fun event, and it's open, I think, to, I don't know if you have to sign up in advance or not, but.
And they're going to be serving wine and...
They are going to be
malt
serving wine
beverages,
and
we're
malt
about to grant
beverages.
them a license
Yeah.
to do that.
So I don't believe there's a charge for it. You may have to sign up, though, in advance to go, but I think people should consider going.
Okay, so I'm going to make an omnibus motion. It's going to be long, because there's a whole bunch of these, so please forgive the length as I go through them. So this is going to be items K, L, M, N, and O. So I will move granting a temporary wine and malt beverage license to the Brookline Senior Center in connection with the BCAN annual meeting to be held on September 17th from 4:30 to 7 at the Senior Center, 93 Winchester Street. I will also move granting a temporary all kinds alcoholic beverage license to the Annunciation Greek Orthodox Cathedral of New England in connection with a festival to be held on September 18th, 19th, and 20th, 2015, from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. And I've been seeing the signs popping up for the Greek festival. Question of granting a I'll move granting a temporary malt and malt beverage license to Brookline, Selectman Daley, you're going to have to help me with the pronunciation, Quetzalcoatl.
Quetzalcoatl.
Thank you.
Oh, I should mention that one, too.
Sister City fundraiser, the Sister City project in connection with a fundraiser to be held on October 22nd, 2015, from 5 to 7. Don't go anywhere. At the Brookline Teen Center, 40 Aspinwall Avenue. I'll also move granting a permit to serve alcoholic beverages on town property, non-sales, to the Lars Anderson Auto Museum in connection with the following events to be held at 15 Newton Street, a wedding reception on September 12th, 2015, 4:30 to 11. Another wedding reception September 19th from 5 to 11 p.m. And a corporate reception September 28th from 5:30 to 10:30 p.m. And lastly, I'm going to move that we grant a temporary all kinds alcoholic beverage license to Pine Manor College in connection with a bat mitzvah to be held on September 26th, 2015, from 6 to 11 at 400 Heath Street. And I'll also note for the record that the police department has reviewed all these applications and sees no reason for us to deny them. So all those in favor of all those motions, please say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
Can I just say a brief word about the Sister City
Please do.
fundraiser?
Please do.
The Sister City, Quetzalcoatl, is a little town in Nicaragua. It's a very poor town, and the Brookline group that has done a tremendous amount to help this town. And, people have gone down there over the years and actually helped build a library community center, and they've helped put equipment in their little they're fairly primitive, but they have some little health centers around. And I was working on a project with this committee to get them a working ambulance, which even though they're about an hour from one end of the area to another, the ambulance was most often not working. But it's a very good organization, and this fundraiser is October 22nd at the Teen Center, 5 to 7, and if, it's something people may want to look into, getting involved with the Sister City program. Thank
you, Selectman Daley. I just want to go backwards a little bit to items I and J. I see Mr. Quigley in the audience, and we approved the change orders already, but Selectman Franco had questions, as I suspect we all do, just on the status of the Old Lincoln School project and the Lawrence School project, and if you can just tell us briefly how those are going, and are we there yet?
The short answer to are we there yet in both cases is yes. Both are occupied and fully functional for school operations. I think the Old Lincoln School in particular is really a transformation. And I have to give my colleague, Mr. Simmons, and his staff and his vendors much of the credit for that, because there was sort of two things going on at the same time, the Lambrian construction project and then all of the stuff that Mr. Simmons and his staff did. And it doesn't mean that we don't have commissioning issues that we're still working on, because we are. And So in particular, we're working on things around the HVAC system, commissioning it, making sure the temperature control systems are operating properly, and making sure that we are compliant with all of the town bylaws and stuff like that with respect to some noise issues. But we're working through them all. And we will find solutions to everything, as we always do. But I can happily tell you that I walked the old Lincoln today, and it's clean, it's bright, and it's being used. And I think when you folks see it, you'll be very happy with it. And the Lawrence School, it's the same issue. We have some, ongoing little items that we're working on, but they're even less because it's new construction, it's all new. And once again, it is being used as it's intended, and I think you'll be pleased if you haven't already seen it, what you see.
So the intention was for it to be occupied for the beginning of this school year. The school year started on Thursday, and it's occupied,
Both buildings
right?
occupied, and, it's been a long summer, but it's been a good summer.
So, and then the other question, so we're on time, so are we on budget?
Yes, we're on time and on budget for both of these.
Okay.
And do you expect future change orders to come before us, or is this sort of the end of the bills?
That was the last of the Lawrence School change orders. There may be some additional changes on the Old Lincoln School, because we do have some claims related to site work, but I don't know that that they will be presented to you as change orders at this point.
Okay.
Any other questions from Mr. Quigley? We've already voted
Thank you.
the change orders.
Yeah, I apologize, I was at the commission, and I'm going to be going back down there again when I leave here, so.
Give them our best.
Okay, I think that's
Thank you,
it. Thank you.
Thank you, good night.
I do believe we are now ready to move on to our main calendar, and the first item is a grant of location. This is a public hearing on the petition of Comcast for permission to construct and a location for such a line of conduits and manholes with the necessary cables therein under the following public way: Walnut Path, a conduit running southerly from Boylston Street, a distance of 110 feet to pole 100/3. So, Mr. Ditto.
Yes, this is a request to install conduit on Walnut Path to the
Is that
sideline.
the walkway beside the school?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
It's about 10 feet wide, more or less.
Would have been better to do this a couple of weeks ago, before school started.
Yeah, we got this together as quickly as we could.
Is the whole path going to be closed off, or?
I think we'll have to shut it down and this is representative from Comcast. He can estimate how many days. Actually, I think they have it in that little sheet. Hang on a minute.
It's listed as expected duration of 2 days.
Yeah.
Does the Lincoln School staff know that the access is going to be restricted?
Yeah, we're going to have to schedule a meeting with them and coordinate the construction.
Aren't there some Jewish holidays coming up? Are those days when low attendance at the school or something? You might check in with them, because
Sure.
there may be, at least one of the days could be one of these days where, the school isn't being used.
Yeah, one of them is next week, and then the week after that, Yom Kippur and...
Rosh Hashanah.
Do you know how quickly you can start on this?
Very quick. We can do Saturdays also.
Oh, Saturday would be good, if you made
Okay.
one.
We'll touch base with
Yeah.
them and get it done.
Because that is, that's the only access from Walnut Street to the Lincoln
Yeah, it means
School.
people have to walk a long way around,
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially if they don't know it's closed off.
right, and then there's teacher parking, employee parking on Walnut Street, so that's going to be Interesting.
Yeah, I think we can, the pole's right at the corner of the walkway that leads into the back of the school. So if we can get out of that area as quickly as possible, then we can open that right back up again for,
So is this to provide service to the school itself?
actually 111 Boylston Street, the new hotel across the street.
Oh, okay. Interesting. And do you don't need to go under Route 9, or that's already,
They're securing that permit from MassDOT on that portion of the run.
okay. But you tap in on Walnut Street and then bring it down? Interesting.
Well, I mean, I do think if you can work with the schools on this, because it's really difficult for the people coming in from that direction, or the teachers who park back there.
Yeah. It may be,
I mean, at least if they announced it or something and people knew that, when it would be.
yeah, you may even want to think about, maintaining access, for the teachers to get in and then get out. And I don't know where the children are dropped off, because there's busing, or are they all dropped off en route? So you're really going to have to touch base with them and figure all that stuff out.
I'm interested to hear a little bit more about when, what I assume is going to be jackhammering and the excavation is going to take place. That's noisy, and to the extent that it can't be coordinated with the schools, I just want to know how long that noise is going to take place for.
Good evening, I'm Kevin Kelly with Comcast. It's going to be saw cut, first of all, and we're only going down about 2 feet. So we could probably actually get it done in one day as far as the conduit and the digging done. Then what we wanted to do was probably repave the whole path.
Yep.
Because it's only 10 feet wide. It'll be better for you guys, and it'll also last forever when, you won't be no seams breaking or...
And the pavement is in pretty poor shape. down that
Exactly,
path.
yeah. So we go right down to the sidewalk on Boylston, because I believe our state permit is probably being written right now. The reason we gotta come from that direction is because it is the fiber that hits the school is branching off of Walnut, and we would need to tap into that fiber line. So there really wasn't much of another choice to come from any other direction.
So any possibility you could do the one on a Saturday and then come back the next Saturday to do the
To
paving?
do the paving, yes. And
Because
I-
that way you wouldn't interfere with the school.
Yeah, and I think we can keep it open even though we're there, because the machine that we use to dig is like a little Bobcat. So we could probably maintain pedestrian access should, if somebody has to get through, we can stop and let them through.
So we're looking at like an 18-inch wide trench and 2
Yes,
feet deep.
18-inch wide, and then the Saturday after that, we'll do like a temporary pave on that, and then we'll come back, rip up the whole thing, and repave it.
Yeah, that sounds like kind of the way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, and that's actually a main entrance into the school.
Right.
Yeah.
And like...
It's a sensitive
Yeah,
pedestrian walk.
like Mr. Ditto says, we're coming right off the back of the school where the pole is, so we can do that real quick, and we can do that in 2 hours and be past that point. And then we can pave that, maintain that access to the back of the school.
This is a public hearing. If there's anyone from the public who wishes to be heard on this petition, now is your time. And I don't see anyone. Any other comments, questions from the board? We ready for a motion?
So I just want to confirm, this is for internet?
Internet.
And cable?
TV
Yep.
and phone.
Got it, okay.
But
It's all one wire now.
One fiber.
And in one conduit, or? we
One
talking-
conduit.
Okay.
Unless the town needs a pipe, we can drop one in for them.
I did conduit this weekend, so now I'm an expert.
Did you hear that, Mr. Ditto, that if the town needs,
Yeah.
I got suckered into doing 65 feet of conduit, so
seriously?
that's what I get for going on vacation to visit a friend of mine.
You're
you
kidding,
did it
on your
by hand,
vacation,
right?
you were putting conduit in?
Water,
Wow.
gas, and electrical
Oh,
conduit.
what a friend.
I know.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
Okay, so I'm going to move granting the petition of Comcast to construct and a location for such a line of conduits and manholes with the necessary cables therein under the following public way, Walnut Path, conduit running southerly from Boylston Street to a distance of 110 feet to pole 100/3. All those in favor, Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
I've got to say, I invited Selectman Franco to my vacation house where he could have just rested in the hammock. I was not going to make him put in any conduit or anything, but no, he didn't come.
I also built a swing set last week for my friend's kids, so. I do all
Boy,
things.
you're a real handy guy.
Public servants,
Next weekend.
light building.
Item 8 is the question of authorizing the filling of the following vacancies within the library department, a reference librarian 1 and a library assistant 1. Ms. Slyman?
Hi, good evening. Sarah Slyman, Library Director, and I'm here about these two positions, but if I could beg your indulgence for one moment, I'd like to introduce Hank Sway, who is our new Assistant Director for Technology, and I stole him away from Harvard University. He's been here for about a month, and I just wanted to give him to you for a moment to introduce you.
Great.
Yeah, so I'm Hank. Sarah did indeed steal me from Harvard, but I've been working in the library field for quite a while. My first library position was here within the Minuteman network, so I'm excited to be back here in Brookline. And in my first 3-ish weeks, I've come across a lot of, kind of infrastructure sort of projects that we can work on, but I'm also starting to think about some of those next big things that will be happening as well, so.
That's what I just wanted to ask you. What are the next big things?
Well,
Bearing in mind
I
that
can't
I'm
say.
the low-tech member of this board.
Sure, so I can't say that I can answer that question fully right now, but I'm beginning to wrap my brain around it, and I know that it will involve, some sort of a collaborative technology space in the library, new types of equipment for patrons to use. I think sort of the sweet spot is, those kind of technologies that are sort of becoming consumer technologies, but that aren't quite there yet, that haven't quite entered the mainstream. So we'll find those things and make them available to the public. So, but yeah, so that's me. Nice to meet all of you.
You should get to know, if you haven't already, Kevin Stokes.
Yes, yeah, I have met Kevin. He was actually on my search committee.
Good.
And we've emailed and talked several times since in my first couple weeks here.
Good.
So, yeah.
So make sure you coordinate everything with him.
Totally.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
welcome.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us about the positions
Sure.
and,
I'd just like to say, while I'm up here, that the town IT department has been terrific and supportive and wonderful as Hank's gotten acclimated, and we're looking forward to, working closely and robustly with them as we move forward. It's been a
Sure.
really nice, quick and wonderful growth on an already good relationship. So I am here tonight to ask approval to fill a reference librarian 1 position in our reference department. We were pleased to recently promote Krista Barasi, who has done digital projects for the State Library of Massachusetts, I believe for Harvard University as well. She has quite a highly valued skill set doing metadata librarianship as well as just digital librarianship to help uncover some of our hidden collections. And because she was promoted, it made this librarian 1 position available. So it's essential. It's an essential position, and I do hope that you consider approving it tonight. The other position is a librarian assistant 1 position. Susan Ingram, who has been with us for, I believe, 37 years, full-time library assistant, has decided to retire, much to our chagrin, and that vacates her position. So I'd like to post that as well.
any questions, comments? I'll have my usual encouragement to work with our HR department and Dr. Gelano to try to attract the most diverse applicant pool that you possibly can.
We shall.
Okay. Then we're ready for a motion. I will move authorization of the filling of the following vacancies in the Library Department, Reference Librarian 1 and Library Assistant 1, Technical Services. All those in favor, say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening.
And good luck, Hank. And the next item is a question of authorizing the filling of vacancy in the position of Assistant Recreation Leader in the Recreation Department. Ms. Paradis.
Good evening, Lisa Paradis, Recreation Director. I'm here to seek authorization filling the vacancy of Assistant Rec Leader. It's a Gen 5 position. It was vacated by a promotion from within, which is always a great thing in our department. And it's a wonderful stepping stone for a new and freshly graduated recreation person. So we love this position and hope to fill it shortly.
Any questions on this one? I too will encourage you to work with our HR department and Dr. Gelano to attract the most diverse applicant pool.
Yeah,
you. We will.
I want to
Thanks.
say, as on behalf of my role and Brookline is an age-friendly community, when you said newly graduated, I don't think you should discriminate against people who might have.
And we don't. That is, I'm sorry, I was basing it on our typical experience, so.
Okay.
That is true. We accept all applicants, of course.
Okay, so I will move authorization of the filling of a vacancy in the position of Assistant Recreation Leader in the Recreation Department. All those in favor, say aye. Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
Thank you.
Well, while we have Lisa here, we were
Yeah.
mentioning Brookline Day,
Yes.
but maybe you can give us a few more highlights.
Sure, yeah. It's fourth annual is on September 20th, coming up.
I mentioned that you always get good weather.
We did, as I was sitting there, I was looking at my weather app on my phone, and it looks pretty good, so I think we're in good shape.
Yeah, but
We've
this
had a
far in
good run,
advance,
so- Listen, I'll take anything. I'll take anything I can get, so. Now is when we start the countdown anyway. It's every day. We're on pins and needles, so, yeah. And it is a rain or shine event, I must add, too, other than torrential downpours. We're set up for rain or shine. But it's.
We mentioned you had a lot of stuff for the little kids.
Yep,
But also, many of our town departments have like booths. If
Yep.
people want to, talk with somebody in
Yep.
the police department or who else is going to be there?
Planning board is there, transportation is there, all of the DPW divisions are there, fire, police, and we call it mini town hall. So there's lots of access to town staff and information that you wouldn't otherwise have access to if you were, say, working during the same hours that town hall is open. So, and it's a great time to expose your family, your small children to that kind of activity in town too. So yeah, it's a thriving mini town hall experience too.
And a number of other organizations that are sort of affiliated with the town, but not really town employees,
Yeah.
are represented there
Yep,
usually.
yep. There are a lot of town meeting or moderator assigned boards and things like that that fall under the category of citizen-run boards and commissions under different departments.
And I
Transportation.
remember last year, there was some like healthy food stuff. and-
Yep, we have actually 5 food trucks this year and then 3 other food vendors. We do have a significant amount of nonprofits this year, as well as for-profit businesses, Brookline-based businesses. But we do have several healthy food sample options out there too. So there's something for everybody at this thing. We have the Touch a Truck for all the little kids, and we have a little kid area for families. We have face painting and henna tattoos and all that kind of stuff. And
the road race.
The road race is a little bit earlier this year, thank you. It starts at 8:30 this year. We had a little bit of issue with the traffic last year, so this was an effort to alleviate that. So we've moved that up a little bit
Is
this year.
that still open for people?
Yep.
Do they
Oh,
have
we
to
take
pre-register?
registrations right up to the
Okay.
day of and the minute before, so.
Are you going to run,
We'll take-
Selectman Franco?
I don't believe so. I want to give somebody else an opportunity.
Yeah.
I think on this, on
not
our
gonna be
board,
me.
in our board, you're the only,
We'll see if somebody else can get the dog for me.
We allow dogs, I think.
well, we have a ceremonial
Oh, the
the person the selectman who's won whatever race it is, which usually there's only one person who's even willing to consider running in anything, so.
Well, you're welcome, Selectman Franco, to come and join us that morning. It's a challenging course, from what I can
It's an
tell.
understatement.
Yeah. Did you do it last year?
Yes.
Okay.
Straight downhill, take a left on Cottage Street uphill, and then you wind your way back along.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
A lot of people really like the course, though. So, yeah, it's our third year doing it, so. But all in all, it's a great event. We're happy to have it. The shuttle, everyone can visit our dedicated website, www.brooklineday.org, and that'll give you all the information. We should have the bus transportation shuttle schedules posted shortly. So we have 3 buses running all day.
I remember last year I was mentioning to some of the people at 100 Center Street that this was coming up, and they didn't really know about it. So maybe if you guys should stick a flyer up there and at the senior center. And
yeah, we will make sure to reach out to them. We've already spoken to the senior center, and they do know that. So what we did after that, after our debrief last year, was talk about the contacts in each one of the centers. So
great. Well, I'm looking forward to it.
Yes.
I assume you'll be speaking on our behalf, Selectman Waschinsky?
We'll have to discuss that. We'll talk.
Great. Everyone's welcome. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay.
Take care.
Thank you. Okay, now moving on to board and commission interviews. We have a number tonight. The first is the Advisory Council on Public Health. Nalina Narain, did I pronounce that correctly? Close enough. So tell us about yourself and why you're interested in serving on this, on the Advisory Council of Public Health. And
thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. I live in this town. We moved here in 2007. My husband actually was on town meeting and then not, and again on town meetings. And we have children in the Brookline school system. And I also work in public health. I'm at the Department of Public Health. I'm the Director of Refugee Immigrant Health and the Bureau of Infectious Disease. So I have always been interested. And my history has been working with healthcare finance before, healthcare finance and policy, and then also violence against women work. And looking at the public health implications of violence against women. So I've always been interested in serving in some capacity in town, and I'd welcome this opportunity.
do you have any particular interests, any direction that you'd want the commission to go in, and where you'd be prepared to help?
Oh, I'm interested in a range of issues. My history when I worked at the Victims of Violence program at the Cambridge Hospital, it was in mental health. It's really looking at the integration of trauma and mental health into public health, into community medicine, and any way that I can participate in town to do that, that would be one interest. I have a teenager and a preteen, so, all the issues around school health, with school mental health, have noticed, in Newton, the issues around suicide and other, mental health issues and depression, as well as drug use, substance use with children, teenagers. That would be another area of interest that I really have. As part of my work, directing an entire program, I manage budgets, so that is an expertise I can bring around procurement and, state budget managing, very limited public health resources from the state. So it's been, interesting as well as a real good learning that for me. So that would be something I could bring as expertise. And in healthcare finance and policy, I did a lot of work with Medicaid rate setting and really looking at a lot of ambulatory care services and rate setting for that. So I can manage big data sets. I've done a lot of work with epidemiology. We, as part of our Massachusetts, the MAVEN system, the Massachusetts Virtual Epidemiological Network, in the state, we do a lot of surveillance work in the Bureau of Infectious Disease, so a lot of data extracts. And I know that Brookline is on MAVEN, so, it's something that we see, and I can help work with something with that as well. So there are a lot of areas that I've both interest and experience in, so that I could participate in.
Yeah. Well, you certainly seem very well qualified. We actually have like a bunch of people who've applied, and there's one opening now. But I happen to know that there's a second opening coming up.
Okay.
Unfortunately, Bruce Cohen is moving out of town.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. The chair.
Yeah.
He's coming, you mean he's not,
He's moving out of Brookline
oh my.
in I think 3 or 4 months. So there'll be a second opening, and there is currently one opening.
Breaking news here at the Board of Selectmen.
I know, well, he told all of us in precinct 12, so I guess I can reveal that. Anyway, and I see you've done some domestic violence work too, which has, been,
Yes, domestic violence, sexual assault, a lot
Yeah,
of my work was
yeah.
really advocacy. That was actually my first work that I did here. And then when I went back for my doctoral work, I was really looking at the intersection of violence and STD risk, and mostly HIV amongst, in specific populations, and also looking at hospital systems which had violence prevention programs, as well as, programs that looked at HIV and STD, like large infectious disease programs, but there was very little linkage in terms of work, because a lot of people we saw at the hospital in Cambridge were at very high risk for STIs from their partners, and so there was barely any connection with those programs. So part of it was really looking at systemically what could be the kind of areas where they could connect to actually intervene for such families.
well, you're certainly, yes, well qualified. We are very fortunate here in Brookline that we have, often people such as yourself who are tremendously qualified in an area apply to, give back a little bit and join one of our boards and commissions, but thank you.
So a few months ago, there was a lot of news coverage of the Ebola epidemic in Africa, and there was some concern in this country about the transmission of Ebola via air travel. I'm wondering, based on your experience with infectious disease, if there's anything we could be doing better in this community to prepare for an epidemic, not necessarily Ebola, but influenza, other potentially serious public health emergencies that could be transmitted through air or
Right,
other
like
means.
tuberculosis. So a lot of my work is also around tuberculosis. I know, I hear what you say about Ebola. Our bureau was involved very heavily with the Centers for Disease Control to really look at the whole Ebola issue. I think some of it had to do with lack of information. That was sort of one of the biggest issues, because Ebola, the initial response was, oh, it's contained. It was a very small contact investigation in one small country, and it's gone away. And I think it was because the public health infrastructure in those countries were so poor. By the time the message got out, that it had sort of, the infection had spread dramatically. The other thing is, even with Ebola, you need bodily fluid contact in order for it to actually spread. So it's not something, if you're sitting on an airplane with somebody, unless they're actually symptomatic, diarrhea, vomiting, bodily fluid contact with another individual, you're very highly unlikely to get Ebola. So I think some of it is really looking at emergency preparedness. What do we have in place? I know we have in this town some work we do around emergency preparedness. And also how you work with the state. The surveillance system, actually how it works is that the surveillance system, our EPI unit, gets the information about anybody who's traveling who may have been exposed to some kind of disease, or they may have shown some signs of hemorrhagic fever or something overseas, or when they've arrived. So there's a whole monitoring system in place for Ebola, as well as other forms of disease. For instance, for Ebola, there's monitoring for 21 days. For the 3 main countries, there's 21-day in-country monitoring, quarantine monitoring of people before they're allowed to travel. And once they travel, CDC monitors, it's been lifted slowly, but CDC monitors for another 21 days. So as public health department, state public health department, we were involved in making sure that local health was involved in going to those people's homes to make sure they're taking their temperature or readings to make sure they're not symptomatic. So there's a whole mechanism in place to really monitor for infectious disease outbreaks. And with tuberculosis, I know that Barbara Wesley has worked very closely with our state department, health department, to really look at any kind of folks who come with active tuberculosis and how to monitor those folks, through directly observed therapy, to make sure all the local contacts for that active case actually gets tested and treated for TB infection if they are exposed. So there's a lot of work we've, in the state that we do, and we work very closely in partnership with local health. And the disadvantage and the disadvantage of working in the state system is, we're in the Bureau of Infectious Disease. I do only infectious disease, and with all the other programs, you get sort of a connection sometimes related to some particular issue. But in local health, you have this breadth of information. You're involved in emergency preparedness, sanitation, you look at environmental health, safety. So there's a whole range of things we could be involved in when you are in a much smaller community in public health, and that's the difference.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay, we're not going to be voting tonight, but we'll be in touch shortly.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, thank you for applying. Next board is the Arts Commission. Is Courtney McGlynn here? Courtney, welcome. Tell us about yourself and why you're applying.
From my resume, I'm assuming you saw my resume.
You're on TV, so.
I've been an artist. I've been an artist and designer for most of my adult life. I've been educator, also a freelance graphic designer. I've been in the arts. I've been at Bunker Hill Community College for 40-something years. I've been the head of the department, in charge of everything, curriculum, finance, budgets, hiring of faculty, etc. I've been living in Brookline for 27 years, and I'd like to use my knowledge and experience to serve the town.
Do you have any particular goals for the commission?
The only thing that I think the commission does a fabulous job, so it's pretty hard for me to come in and say, start pointing fingers. I would like to make a kind of a directional move towards outreach for art education in schools and outside of schools. We kind of tend to think that our children take art, and we kind of say, oh, well, they're getting a little art, and then kind of wash our hands of it. My daughter, for instance, took classes at Museum of Fine Arts on Saturday. I don't think there's any reason why Brookline can't sponsor its own classes. And for those students that are a little more inclined to want more than the classroom setting is offering them. So that's really,
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Well, I will say that unlike with the last applicant, there's a bunch of openings on the Art Commission. So it's looking good for you.
Yeah, we have a number of incumbent commissioners who are term limited, are being term limited out.
This is like the only commission we seem to have
Yeah.
a term
Yeah,
limit
there's
on.
term limits.
I think it's because there's some grant responsibilities and they want to have some turnover.
Oh,
after a
okay.
certain-
Anyway, yeah, there's openings.
So I'm familiar with the grant situation. As you can see, I did a grant for Bunker Hill Community College. I got $850,000 that revamped the facility for the Visual and Media Arts Department in 2004. So I'm kind of familiar with the system and how that works.
Yeah, so there's actually more openings than we have applicants for currently, so I would, if anyone watching wishes to apply and feels you're qualified, please do. We're looking for people to help us out.
I like your art thing for kids to, and I would suggest that, should you be appointed to the Arts Commission, you might suggest that the commission work with the Recreation Department, to maybe offer some Saturday workshops or something like that, because they know how to publicize that and, could help get it set up and stuff. Yeah.
We won't be voting tonight, so you'll be hearing from us next few weeks. And thank you for applying.
Thank you.
And the next commission is the Commission for the Disabled, Myra Burloff. Welcome.
Nice to be here.
Well, tell us about yourself and...
Happy to. So my name is Myra Burloff, and I live on Longwood Avenue in Brookline. We have been here almost 15 years. I recently retired as the director at the Mass Office on Disability. I was with the Office on Disability for 20 years. The last 14 as their director. Prior to that, I was an assistant director and then a deputy director and so on and so forth. And I had always made a commitment to the municipality in which I live that I would not sit on their Commission on Disability as long as I was in the role that I was in state government. And when I retired, I thought to myself, this is a perfect opportunity to use my expertise to share a little bit of what I know with my town, because we love living here. I adore Brookline, and I feel that it is an extraordinarily diverse community that I'm very proud to be part of. And I thought I might have some expertise that I could share.
So I am the Selectmen's representative on the Commission for the Disabled, and I think your expertise, your skill set would be a perfect fit for us. We have been going through a couple of discussions, most recently about taxi medallions and access to taxi and vehicles in Brookline, and with some of the conversations that have recently concluded or are nearing completion, I think we're ready to look for a new project, a new conversation, and I think your vast experience at the state level would help us figure out what the best way to proceed is and what the next issue we should tackle is.
It would be my pleasure, and I do not ever intend to be so presumptuous that I'm going to tell you what you should be looking at, but would be happy to share whatever I can so that you can get through the process easier and that we can work together.
Let me just ask, because I know there's a number of openings on this commission currently, but a certain number of the people on there are supposed to be disabled or have a close family member who's
Correct.
disabled?
I don't know
like that.
the number of, I helped write that regulation. I don't know that, you'll probably hear a lot of that from me. But I don't know, do you have 5 or 7 members? The majority need
1,
to
2,
be people
3,
with
4,
disabilities,
It's
depending
more
if
like
you're...
9.
Yeah.
Oh, typical are 5 or 7. So the majority of members do need to be people with disabilities. You should have family members, 1 or 2, the representative from the municipality.
I just wondered if you qualify.
I do. My daughter lives with us, and she is severely disabled.
Okay, well, there you go. All right.
Are there particular issues that you're excited about maybe tackling or would like to propose that the commission take a look at?
I don't know what you're tackling.
Okay.
I did know that you were tackling the taxi issue. When I left state government, I was working directly with Mass DOT on sidewalks and curb cuts. And so I have intimate knowledge of the work that they're doing on that. And although Brookline has done a pretty good job on its sidewalks and curb cuts, there are areas that do need addressed. And so this is a pedestrian community, and we want to make sure that everybody has full access, and so I think that is something good to work on. I think that there have been some of the new construction of buildings and some renovation, amongst other things you saw. I sat on the Architectural Access Board for 18 years. So I have intimate knowledge because I did help write a lot of those regulations, not all of them. I'm not that old, but a lot of them. So I would like to be able to share some of my expertise to dispel any of the fears and the myths about how onerous it is to become accessible, but rather to help the community become more welcoming and accessible with ease. So I think I have a depth and breadth, cross-disability, because that was what MOD was all about. Happy to share whatever I can.
We've recently been having a very animated discussion in town about diversity in general, and one of the areas that I brought it up a couple times, but it didn't seem to resonate as much with other people, is making it easier for disabled people to work for the town. And I wonder what your thoughts are on that, and whether you see a role for the commission in
You'll
that
get me
area.
started. Absolutely. So during my years at MOD and under Governor Patrick, I was the co-chair of his employment of people with disabilities. We had these signs all over, and a lot of municipal government actually used our marketing campaign, and it was intended to promote employment of people with disabilities. I think there is a very big misunderstanding in the employer world that if a person with a disability walks through their door, they're going to end up having to hire them, oh, God forbid, and they will never be able to fire them, and what if they're a terrible employee, and there's a lot of fear. And in fact, absolutely the opposite is true. Folks with disabilities make really wonderful employees. The expectation is that you are qualified to do the job, and we all have qualifications we expect for our employees to meet, and what we ask is that we open our doors wide enough to allow everyone in so that they can get through the door and make that first introduction. And then once that happens, once you meet the qualifications, an employer should be able to hire the most qualified individual they can, including if it's a person with a disability. And at that point, and as long as the person has all the credentialing you need and can do the essential functions of the job, I would venture to say you will have a far better employee than the average person. And that's because I just read in today's Globe that unemployment of people with disabilities is over 10% now, and the general unemployment rate is 5%. So people with disabilities are absolutely looking to work.
And that's been my experience as an employer.
And I was an employer for a lot of years, so I know.
Well, we have 5 openings and right now 3 applicants. I think your odds are pretty good, and you're certainly qualified. And so we're not going to be voting tonight, so...
It'll be my pleasure to serve, and hope I can help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The next commission is the Conservation Commission, and Pallavi Monday. Did I print? Yes. Okay, great. I'm good at butchering names. So you've been on the commission for about 9 months, so
Yes.
So I guess this was filling out a term of someone who had left. So tell us what you've been up to in the last 9 months and
Sure.
why you want to continue.
So my background is in urban design and planning. I direct what is called the Blue Cities Initiative at the Charles River Watershed Association. So I've been a resident of Brookline for over 10 years, have kids, a second grader and a kindergartner who just started last week at Michael Driscoll School, have been involved with a lot of planning as part of my day job, and finally I figured as part of, having now kids in school, I had a little more time that I would like to share my experience and expertise and give back to the extent I can to the town. So the last 6 to 9 months have been really eventful. We've had more filings. I've been told that I brought filings in with me when I joined the commission, and it's been a really nice experience working with the other commissioners who've been very supportive and encouraging. And one of the main reasons I wanted to join was since the town's going to start their open space plan. Actually, we had a couple of meetings on the commission already, and that's something that I'm really hoping to contribute towards. So that's one of my passions as a planner and designer, and I'm really looking forward to getting involved with that a lot more.
Mm-hmm. Any questions, comments?
No. We appreciate your service.
Thank you.
It's going to be an easy interview.
Pretty short.
That's the advantage, I guess, of being later in the process. Okay, so we have, well, you have an incumbent seat, and so I guess we're not going to be voting tonight, so we'll vote at a upcoming meeting on whether to reappoint you. But I think
But
the
you
odds are pretty
continue
good.
to serve
Yes.
until you get reappointed or somebody else gets appointed to your slot, so.
You're getting off easy.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for serving and wanting to serve. And the last board and commission tonight is the Human Resources Board, Lori Cawthon. And you've been on for a little while now, so tell us what your experience has been like and why you want to continue.
My experience has been absolutely wonderful. I've been in HR for over 16 years, and I came from a labor relations background, and I'm not doing so currently, so to be able to still keep, those skills fresh by listening to grievances, still doing some policy work and job reclassifications. It's been wonderful.
What have been some of the issues, what are some of the things that you'd like to tackle as you continue on the board? What do you see your areas of focus?
A lot of contract work, in ways that we're able to help assist Sandra along with the contract and contract language, et cetera. There's a lot of policy changes that are coming through in terms of the latest ones were the part-time, less than half-time employees that earn sick time. There was, trying to think, victims of
Yeah, that's going to be
abuse.
coming up
Is another
tomorrow.
one, yes.
Tomorrow?
So,
The 8th.
there's a lot of
Your next
a
meeting.
lot of policies and laws that have come
Right,
into
and there's
effect.
going to be a town meeting. There's a warrant, there's going to be a warrant article on that too, so that's going to be a topic of a lot of discussion.
Yes,
And it's-
definitely.
And it's been in the Globe and.
Yes.
Well, I know that Ms. DeBoe and her office have been working hard on creating or updating a lot of the policy material, like sexual harassment and areas like that. So what are your thoughts on, are there other policies that we don't have yet that we need, or do you think that process is going well of kind of bringing those things up to date?
Actually, that's our plan going forward, is to actually just kind of going through and just kind of making sure that things that need to be there are there and things that are missing aren't. I think that's the beauty of having different minds from different aspects of HR or legal or et cetera, to kind of bring our knowledge together to tackle some of those things. So that is on our agenda.
One of the hot issues in town over the past couple of years has been the diversity of the town's workforce. And this board takes that very seriously and has spent a lot of time, particularly as we vote approval for hiring processes to proceed, urging department heads to engage in a recruitment process that's open and all-encompassing and seeks applicants from all parts of the Boston community and the national community, for that matter. I'm wondering if there's more we could be doing to ensure that the applicant pool we get for positions is diverse.
I personally come from the thought of, if you don't have a diverse applicant pool, then you probably need to hold the process and to figure out why. There are some positions, understandably, sometimes it's difficult to hire a person of color, but at least if you've tried every avenue to hire someone of higher diversity, then great. But there's other times I think we don't utilize the resources within our town enough. There's plenty of us in the community that are part of professional organizations or use our college associations or fraternities, sororities, et cetera, where we have these connections in town and nationally, but a lot of times we're not utilized in that capacity. And we're definitely willing to do it.
So how do we go about accessing those personal networks to ensure that we get a diverse applicant pool?
I mean, I'm happy to pull some group of people together that I know, and, you know, from there, it's pretty much word of mouth. But
I think your point is well taken, that we need to do a better job of accessing personal networks and going to people who may work in a particular sector, in the private sector, in that sort of job area, and making sure that they are aware of the position and asking them to pass it along to their friends and colleagues or anybody they know that may be looking for a change in work.
right.
Yeah, and I think that's really how you do it, so we appreciate your being willing to sort of get involved in that.
As I've said to the other applicants, we're not voting tonight. So you'll be hearing from us next few weeks, and you'll continue to serve until reappointed.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for serving. Okay, that concludes our boards and commission interviews, and we now have the last items on the agenda, which is the warrant articles for town meeting. The warrant closed last week, last Thursday, and we have before us a proposed warrant. So, Ms. Goff, you want to walk us through it?
Sure. So we have 18 warrant articles that were filed last Thursday. We have unpaid bills, collective bargaining agreements, budget amendments. Those are the standard that normally start off the special town meeting. A proposal from the assessors and council on aging on the tax work-off program, a proposal on the VFW and tax exemption status, a proposal from Park and Rec on Lars Anderson, which we have talked about in front of this board at previous meetings. Earned sick time proposal from 2 town meeting members, mandatory training for town meeting members, a requirement for public hearings for water and sewer rates, banning leaf blowers, expanding leaf blowers, so some competing warrant articles.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting discussion to work out.
The definition of habitable space. You've also previously talked about the community choice aggregation program. So there are two, one to give you the power to enter into a program, and then a resolution trying to gauge the temperature for what kind of program would be formed. Then we have a resolution on eminent domain, and then we also have another resolution on standardized testing, natural gas pipelines, and diversity in the town's workforce.
An interesting warrant. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, I'm going to move execution of the warrant for the November 17th, 2005 Fall Special Town Meeting. All those in favor, Selectman Daley?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
And chair votes aye.
Thank you.
And that
I will just note that I have been talking with people in the planning department and about thinking about our parking requirements, and it wasn't quite ready to go into this warrant, but we'll perhaps at a future one. I think I'm, like many others, I'm concerned about us requiring so many parking spaces for studio and one-bedroom apartments in particular.
Okay, and I think that concludes our business for tonight, September 8th. So thank you.
And we should note that I think we're next scheduled to meet on the 17th.
Which is
of
next
September.
Thursday.
Correct.
So we're not meeting next Tuesday due to Rosh Hashanah. We're meeting Thursday. Thank you, Selectman Franco.